And
introduce yourself.
I think it says recording.
Yeah,
I want to thank everybody. I somehow ended up doing a cook together thing every week for 4 years. And what I liked about it is usually, well, always, we had one person who shared their culture, their knowledge, their spirit, and we all got together and we cooked with them. It was never this one person cooks and everybody eats. It was we cook together, we eat together, following the concept of slow food, right? And I just started doing that again virtually recently, a couple months ago, and it's been fun. It's a little different because we don't get to eat together as well, but I absolutely love it. I came across Crystal and, more importantly, Boss Lady Iris. They've been doing a bunch of like spontaneous kind of cooking shows on Facebook, and it is a blast. So years ago I met Crystal at probably St. Louis Earth Day. Yep. And we go around speaking at the Mother Earth News fairs about different things. And did a blog today about what trying to live without a phone. Like I came across somebody who lives without a phone. They're a modern young person, but so Iris, what are we making today?
We're making braided bread.
Braided bread.
Yeah, we're making braided bread.
What is braided bread?
So it's like on a pastry kind of bread, and then you put a bunch of different like toppings you would put on a pizza inside of it. And then what you do, you cut it into like a feather shape, but without the shape of it. You just do the lines. And then once you have all the toppings in, you would fold them over and then make it like in a braid.
Yeah, we're gonna actually braid it.
Do you have like different kinds of braids, or it's always like the same kind of braid?
It's usually the same.
It's kind of like a French braid. So this is not like the challah bread. That's also a braided kind of thread. This is a stuffed braided bread that we just kind of, I'm pretty sure we just came up with this several years ago. I had all these seasonal vegetables and I was figuring out different methods of baking and ways to stuff bread. And I didn't like how the ones turned out, which were like a bun stuffed with things. I wanted it to be more airy and have cheese, you know, oozing out of it. So instead we started playing around with techniques. And I have a funny story about Iris in the kitchen. So since she was born into farming, I was running the farm with my husband when we had her. And then a couple days after I had her, we had to get back to work harvesting. And so from the time she was little, I've had her in my little baby carrier when she was a baby. And everything that I would do, I would explain to her. I really, you know, sometimes I talk to her in baby talk, but mostly I would speak to her as if she were an adult. And so I would say, all right, now we're harvesting peppers. This is a pepper. Look at the pepper seeds. And so she learned how to pick peppers before she learned how to walk. Yeah. But really, she was attached to me through the baby carrier.
Wait, that sounds like child labor. Isn't that like not allowed? Just like
she wanted to.
Hey now, what do you think I do for a living? Or
so if you could imagine this little baby, I would say, you know, we're adding 1 cup of this. Oh, we're going to stir it now. Then we're going to add a tablespoon of this. So I would verbally explain to her every time I was in the kitchen. When she was 3 years old, I was working on an article, or it was right around the time when I started blogging for Mother Earth News. So I was always busy. She was about 3 years old. We had been baking bread together since she was a baby. So she comes walking in with pot holders with a loaf of bread that she made. And I went outside and said, thanks for making bread with Iris. I know I've been busy. And he said, I didn't make bread with Iris.
That's scary.
She made it by herself.
Oh, that's
She
really
got it.
scary.
Yeah,
I
she
can't
got a
even do that
chair.
myself.
I mean, the kitchen, it was right there. We lived in a tiny house, so the kitchen was right there, a wall separating it. But I could have heard if. But she cracked an egg, added flour. She even measured the flour. I saw the measuring cup with flour, and then she added water, flour, salt, and an egg. And she stirred it up and put it in the oven herself. She climbed on a chair, pressed the oven. Another thing is she knew the oven was hot, so every time I touched the oven or the stove, I would say hot, hot. Anytime anything was hot, so she knew it was like kind of like Pavlov's experiment. So anyway, I don't know if that's a good analogy.
And you've
Anyway,
never
so
made a
today-
better loaf of bread since then, right?
Right, I have not had a better loaf of bread since
Wow.
then. So this is braided bread. You can use this puff pastry if you're in a pinch. That's what I have here. And then I made some dough from scratch here, which this dough is 4 cups of flour. I'll post this in the event. 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of yeast, 1 1/3 cup of warm water, and 1 tablespoon or maybe 2 tablespoons of, I used half avocado oil and half olive oil. So really there's just a few simple ingredients in there. This is the dough. I kneaded it.
It sounds like making biscuits, basically biscuit dough.
Yeah, so it's going to be nice and airy. If you don't have time to make the dough, of course it's cheaper to make the dough yourself. But if you don't have time to make the dough, you can buy this puff pastry sheets if you're in a pinch. So that's what this is. It comes in little sheets, and I rolled it out just a little bit. And so the
Now,
first step
Iris,
is.
do you ever make like the dough like that and then cut it in pieces and freeze it?
Oh, that's a good idea.
I've seen them do that in restaurants before, where they'll just pull out a piece of frozen dough, thaw it out.
Yeah.
Um,
This
and
actually
so-
comes in the frozen section, so you have to thaw it out before you use it. So that's a great idea. I've never thought to freeze dough before that I make. So Iris is going to be rolling this out. We're just going to roll it over the whole pan. And then I have some onions. So the ingredients are, really you can fill it with anything savory or anything sweet, or a combination if you want, like an apple pork chutney filling, you could do that. I'm a vegetarian.
A
The rest
what?
of the family eats meat. So you could fill it with a
Just
sweet, like an apple. You could do your apple upside down cake, except make an apple strudel with the braided bread. So we're gonna do kind of a Mediterranean or Italian style with olives. We have artichoke hearts that are drained. They're just a can of artichoke hearts drained, and I squeezed the water out. We've got fresh garlic that we grew, minced. I actually added an ingredient, sun-dried tomatoes. And then we have mushrooms sliced and olives, about a 1/4 cup of olives sliced. It's a variety.
But
got a sweet deal on a jar of olives.
Do you tend to, though, use whatever you have on the farm in season? And when you make this, I mean, it's winter now, but
Yeah.
so you
So,
get to go.
I love artichoke hearts, though. I keep them as a staple. They're just a favorite. We scored this jar of olives at Aldi's for $3 after the holiday season.
Wow.
So this giant jar. So I've got a 1/4 cup of olives going. And then
I wish I had
recipe-
saved the can of artichoke heart. Like I found a can of artichoke hearts like 2 weeks ago that was right at the use by date, and I was trying to figure out what to use it for, and I could have saved it.
This is just simple marinara. I'm not going to use all of it. You'll need some to spread on it, or you could just honestly use olive oil. I've got a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and all of these ingredients are listed in the Facebook event. And then I have a few handfuls of spinach. I used baby spinach for this. The other few ingredients that I'm using are homegrown herbs, so basil and oregano. And then I have some olive oil. And then I have, this is a garlic herb salt blend that we make.
So what is something you think we shouldn't put in? It seems like something that would be very wet you wouldn't want to put in.
Yes, so any wet ingredients you want to drain, and I just use a regular towel, and I just here, I'll show you. So I use kind of like a tea towel, and any wet ingredients you could put in a tea towel and then just fold it over and squeeze the water out before you start. Squeeze it over. Don't squeeze it over the pastry, right, Iris?
Yeah.
And squeeze it over the sink.
Or the trash can even.
Yeah. So one of the last ingredient, which is a little secret ingredient, is pesto. So I buy these silicone molds for pesto season, and ideally I would put these into a Ziploc and freeze them, but once they're frozen, but they come out really nicely. So this is just some pesto that we made. I don't know if you can see
About
that.
2
Oh,
years.
yeah.
No, this was this season.
No, last year.
This is this past season.
2020.
Yeah.
2020. I can
And this is chimichurri. Chimichurri is just herbs with apple cider vinegar and olive oil and salt. So I have
So the
parsley,
difference between
oregano.
pesto and chimichurri is one tends to have oil and one tends to have vinegar?
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I do add oil to my chimichurri also though, but the secret is the apple cider vinegar. Gives it a nice pungent flavor. Okay,
You
so
make
I've
that
already-
yourself? I'm
What's
sorry.
that?
Do you make that yourself?
Yes, so I chimichurri, we have a lot of herbs that we grow here, so I use parsley, oregano, sometimes dill, a lot of basil, and you blend that up in the food processor with a little salt and garlic, lots of garlic actually. And then you add the vinegar, and then you add a little olive oil, and I freeze it. So these were in the freezer. And
Yeah, I make chimichurri every week, and it's basically I use cilantro and parsley, kind of half and half, garlic, a little dry oregano or fresh oregano if you have it, and then basically a vinaigrette, olive oil and vinegar of your choice.
So
Wonderful.
Fred, I can put
and
my
chili.
order in. Fred, I can put my order into you, right?
It's just like,
Yeah,
Just
Well,
shut me down a little bit. You
but
know.
I also put red pepper flakes, a little red pepper flakes in it to give it a little heat.
ooh,
Crystal, do you guys still do a CSA?
yes, we do.
Okay,
We
so
have-
if you were in St. Louis area, you could place an order with Crystal from their, they have a farm, and do you want to give a little background what a CSA is? Some people might not
Sure.
know. What is it?
I'm just gonna start sauteing these mushrooms real quick, and then I'll come back to the
All right.
CSA thing. But I have onions already sauteed. I'm gonna saute these mushrooms real quick.
All right.
With the garlic.
Yeah,
So
see, I'm city girl over here, so all of that is new to me. I'm like, whoa, look at her. She makes everything and gets it from her own garden. That's pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you. We try to do 80% of our own food during any given growing season. We try to grow 80% of our food or source it locally from local meat producers. But in the winter, we splurge and we go to Trader Joe's. So we also shop local during the winter. And we do grow microgreens and sprouts, but it's not near, and we can and freeze a lot
at
as
the
well.
farmer's market this morning, I got popcorn sprouts.
Ooh.
I have never had them. They were about 4 inches tall, and they tasted like sweet corn. I had never
That's
had them
amazing.
before, so I bought them just
Sure.
let me try them, and I've ate almost the whole bag already. So
Yum, that sounds delicious. All right, so I'm taking this dough and putting it in half. Iris is gonna flatten this out a little bit. I'm gonna save this for later. I might try your freezing suggestion or on this one. That sounds great.
now, is this the same type of dough you did in your making pasta, or is it?
No, that was just eggs and flour, egg
Okay.
yolks and flour and salt. But this has oil, salt, baking powder, yeast, salt, flour. I think I already said salt, and sugar, and it's just a simple like pizza dough.
I got
Okay, so-
Sayuri from Brazil just logged in. She's next month we're gonna do a cooking show for her birthday. So
Oh, I want to join that one. Can you send me that link?
sure.
Okay, so I'll talk about CSAs, but first I'm going to show you this braiding technique. So you'll probably wonder, what the heck is she doing? I'm going to do one side and have Iris match the other side. So what you want to do is pretend your dough is in thirds. You're going to leave the middle third intact. You're not going to cut this. You're just going to cut on an angle, kind of like an eagle.
Or like if you're drawing like a pine tree.
Yeah. Yes, that's a
Or
better
what do you
way.
call it? We
Christmas
used
tree.
to cut the construction paper pine trees when we were kids.
Yes, you're right. That's perfect. So I'm just kind of
I have-
cutting it with
I have
the
a question. I have a
Sure.
question before I start cutting mine. So I have a toaster oven, and so I have this like small, pan for the toaster oven, and my dough, like I unfolded it, and it's longer than my pan. Do I need to
I
cut
would just
it?
cut it. I would cut it to the size of your pan, and you could just do a miniature version.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
But
My
you
design
roll
this
it
is
out a
not
little
like
bit,
two
right?
minis. Huh?
Can you see those cuts, or I
Yeah.
can't tell.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, they're just
Whoa.
just like,
There we go. Here's what I did.
Kind of looks like a Christmas tree. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I'm just gonna start on this one. I told Iris she could cut it, and I totally forgot. I'll let her fill it and then braid it. So here
I
we
just
go.
want to braid it.
Okay, so I'm gonna put the caramelized onions down first. I've sauteed a small onion. You're just gonna braid it?
I think we're gonna do this.
so caramelized onions and mushrooms. Let's see some.
All right, Iris, will you go ahead and add these ingredients?
Yeah.
So
all
we-
of them?
Yeah. Here, let's do these first. So first I added the onions, the caramelized onions. Next we're adding the artichoke hearts.
And so
Not all of them.
artichoke hearts, like if you get them in a can, are really wet. So you said you squoze the water out.
Yes, I squeeze it out with a terry towel or a tea towel. We're adding only half of our ingredients because we're going to do two separate ones. So I'm only adding half of each thing. So half of the olives, half the sun-dried tomatoes, which I don't think I put on that list, but they make a wonderful addition. Then we're going to do just a few handfuls of spinach. And then olive, did you already do olives?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, we're going to sprinkle it with some salt.
So I can honestly tell you right now, I will have a problem not putting too much stuff on this. When I make a taco, I fill it too much. So like, how do you make sure you don't like put
I have
way
the
too
same
much stuff on
problem.
it?
You just kind of want a little mound. So I'm also putting some of this frozen basil, and Iris is doing the herbs. So just like a little braided mound. And then you're gonna drizzle just a little bit. You don't need this whole jar of marinara. You're just
So the
gonna do a
only
little
real
bit.
moisture you're putting is like a really thick marinara on it.
Yes, it's very thick. So we've got that, and then we're gonna top it with cheese. Iris, ready?
Yeah. What is this?
Does it matter what kind of cheese?
I use Parmesan.
Could you use Asiago?
Yeah, you can use any kind of cheese, any kind.
Well,
Or if you
both
wanted to do like a Southwest braided bread, you could do black beans and chorizo and cheddar, onions.
Just American cheddar cheese. Wouldn't be good.
So I mean, basically, it's a closed pizza. That's what you're saying, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess if we wanted to be fancy, we could call it a braided calzone.
It's just like, have you ever put corn on it?
Now I'm gonna put mushrooms, those sauteed mushrooms, and
Okay, you
garlic.
didn't saute the mushrooms in the onions. You sauteed them separately.
Only because I wanted to show the whole mushrooms. I don't know. I could have sauteed them together for sure. What was your last question, or I'm sorry.
Oh, have you ever put corn? For some reason, I like corn on pizza ever since I was in Mexico and had it as a kid.
Ooh, that sounds amazing. Actually,
Like
let's put a little bit
sweet
more.
corn.
That sounds amazing. Let's do a little more spinach. We're gonna do a little more. Okay,
See
so
that
Iris
to
is
me
gonna-
that looks like a absolute ton of stuff.
like a what?
It looks
A
like a
ton of
lot of
stuff?
stuff.
Oh, once you start braiding it, you'll see it does kind of pop out the top. So we started the braid at the top. We just brought the front down. It's not really technically a braid, more so than just taking the dough and
Just the crisscross.
Overlapping it.
yeah, overlapping it. But it looks like a braid. when you
Yeah,
do
looks like a braid.
That's really cool.
it. Thanks.
So just depending on what kind of things and food you like, you can just do all kinds of stuff,
Anything your heart desires.
including the corn. There you go.
Yeah. You could do a breakfast one if you took slightly underdone scrambled eggs and potatoes or something.
Well, like you
could make
said,
it-
chorizo and yeah,
Or
that
you could
kind of
make it,
stuff.
you could make it sweet rather than savory if you wanted
Yes.
to even.
Like apple, Orr mentioned he wanted to do an apple upside down cake. Did you say apple upside down or pineapple upside down?
Apple. Yeah.
Yeah, you could do anything you want. And if you want it really beautiful, you angle the braid parts down like this. And then for the end, Iris can show you how to do the end here.
So then you take
You just kind of,
Close it up.
yeah.
just kind of tuck it in.
She rolls it and tucks.
So what
Cool.
are some common mistakes you think? I know me, put too much stuff in, it's too wet.
Yeah, I think using a dough that's too tough, like if you over knead your dough, it makes it not as delicious. That's why I like the puff pastry. If you can figure out how to make a fresh dough that mimics puff pastries, which I'm sure there's thousands of recipes
Can I
online.
like brush it?
Yeah.
with-
Emily, is it all right if I spotlight you? Looks like you have one almost made.
I'm working on it. I mean, yeah, go ahead if you want to. Am I supposed to drizzle some olive oil over this? I've got the filling and the sauce.
So Iris just drizzled it over the top here, and she's using this silly fork.
It's not a silly fork.
We call it a silly fork. It's a little pastry brush.
Little silicone pastry brush.
Yeah, but she used to call it a silly fork.
Oh,
That way, that'll just make it crisp up a little bit with the olive oil.
Yeah.
One,
And then you could do a pinch of salt. Iris just sprinkled some cheese over the top.
so it's like a cheese.
You could do a pinch of salt over the top. And then that's ready to go in the oven. I give it about.
Oh, I'm so excited. I just got a silly fork in the mail. I was just looking. I was like, I got a set of
Here's your
silicone.
silly fork. Cheers.
I'm
So I
gonna call
have it
it.
on 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm gonna put it in the oven for 10 minutes just to see how it does, and then check on it. It cooks differently with every ingredient, so just check it after 10 minutes. And while I'm baking this one, we're gonna work on this other one.
One time we made mini braided bread and that was really delicious. And it was
that's
very-
kind of what I'm doing right now.
Iris, did she say 10 minutes at 425?
400.
Oh, 400. So really hot because you want to crisp the bread, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And on the base, it's really best to work with a floured surface. If you don't have regular flour, you can use semolina flour. You might want to roll this out a little bit more. Yeah, a little bit. No, just go ahead and roll it this way. You can use semolina flour or cornmeal to layer on the bottom so that it doesn't stick. We have a really heavily floured surface that we're just rolling right onto this sheet pan. It's a cookie sheet. And Iris
That's
is
my
gonna roll
style.
out-
Yeah, make less mess.
Yeah.
What is semolina?
It's this
It's like
Durham wheat flour. It's how
So it's like a
pastas-
harder wheat.
Yeah, it's how a lot of pastas are made, and this is a very coarse. It's a coarser wheat. It's almost like has the consistency of cornmeal.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, most of your Italian pasta are made from semolina.
Oh, we gotta cut it first.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
it's
spreading some
just
garlic olive oil on mine.
What's that?
I'm spreading some garlic olive oil on mine
Ooh.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
from some garlic.
Okay, Iris
confit
is
that I
gonna
made.
do the cutting all by herself now. So if you wanna check out the pro doing the cutting, let's do a narrow one. All right. She's cutting this. This is the homemade dough. And again, it has flour, water, warm water, yeast, salt, sugar, and a little bit of baking powder. Remember to leave the blank spot in the middle. You know, that's okay. You got this. That's beautiful, Iris. It kind of reminds me of a thunderbird.
I'm not.
So is farming in your family, or is this just something you started with your generation?
It skipped 2 generations. So my mom wasn't a farmer, but she did grow iris flowers, which is why I named my daughter Iris, because we had 4-generation iris flowers blooming on Mother's Day when I was pregnant. So that's where her name came from. But 2 generations prior to which would have been my great grandparents were farmers in Washington, Missouri.
Awesome.
And you said
I farm in the
425.
grocery store.
You said 425, right?
400.
400.
My mother's family were sharecroppers in Tennessee.
Wow.
Emily, you might want to put yours a little higher.
Yeah, because the altitude, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do it a little bit
Either
higher.
that or do it longer, whichever you're more comfortable with your toaster oven. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say do it longer.
Okay, for
Because
this
you don't
one,
know
we're gonna
that
spread a
it's a
little
new
bit.
toaster oven, right? I don't know.
No, it's not.
I'm
new.
sorry. For this one, I just wanted to show you, you can put the marinara on the bottom, just like a pizza if you wanted to. That's one way to do it. Sometimes I find that the bottom gets soggy if you do that, but I'm gonna try it again with this. This is a thicker dough. Sorry, go ahead.
And your marinara is really thick too. I mean, most store-bought marinara is, they call it marinara, but it's really just a tomato sauce.
Yeah.
It's just like.
Is that you made that marinara? Is that homemade?
Not this particular one, but I
Oh.
have some in the freezer now that I just didn't have time to thaw.
Mhm.
I do some canning, but with tomatoes, I don't like to take a chance with botulism. I just got a pressure canner though this last season, so I've been freezing all of my marinaras. They just don't turn out the same as when you can them.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love fresh tomatoes. So the only thing I do can in quantity is tomatoes.
And pesto.
Jen is our big canner of the crowd too.
Wonderful.
So you're over here doing all veggies. Have you done any with any kind of meats in them?
Yeah, but you want to cook the meat first or have smoked meats or something. I'm also putting in this chimichurri. I'm just breaking it up and putting it over the top. And then I'll do a basil pesto also. This is
Now I noticed everything you're
purple.
putting in is stuff that you are willing to actually eat raw. So it doesn't really have to cook.
Right, it's either pre-cooked or you can eat it without cooking.
Right.
Okay.
It's just the dough because it has raw eggs in it.
So basically all you're really cooking is the dough.
Yep.
Everything else you're warming up.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
you're
why
right.
you would cook
So-
the meat unless, like you said, unless you're using smoked or processed meat or something like salami or something
Yeah.
like that.
But it's a really tasty recipe. It's especially fun for special occasions. So if you know, especially baby showers or bridal showers or Mother's Day, something that you want to do special for your loved one. It looks super fancy, and like you can see, it only takes a little bit of effort to make it.
Well, I like the idea if you have extra of any vegetables, you can get rid of a
Throw it
bunch of
in.
vegetables and people will eat them.
Yes.
So one trick I do when I, cater an event, instead of making a veggie platter, I'll make a croissant crust and then get like ranch and spread it on there and then put all the veggies on it. So people get like a slice of veggie pizza, but it's really they're eating the veggie platter.
That's amazing.
And
Oh,
people
yeah.
actually
Like
eat
a-
it instead of, oh, there's this big veggie platter and it only gets half eaten.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah,
a
it's
just
Kobe
interesting.
pizza.
This would be awesome for the young kids that have sleepovers. So
Yes.
instead of buying a, expensive pizza or 5 or 6 of them, just make a few of these and cut them up. That would be so cool.
Well,
Yeah,
And
you
you could
can
do
put
small
anything-
ones and everybody can have their own.
well, they could each make their own.
Yeah.
That could
Right,
be
that's
part
what
of
I
the
mean, yeah.
sleepover.
Yeah, Iris, you want to tell them about the minis?
I already did.
Do it one more time. I'm not sure.
So we made
Good luck there.
we made mini braided bread and they were like this tiny and we each got one, but my mom and dad got like two.
I'm making two.
So you can make mini ones and just have them be personalized and have the toppings ready to go. We'll just keep it on this.
Oh, I will.
Oh yeah. So we're gonna drizzle some more olive oil on this one and a little bit of salt. You can put cheese on top too if you'd like.
That's it.
I bet putting the oil on the top probably makes it crisp better.
Yeah.
So you don't put oil underneath it to like, fry the dough underneath it? I mean,
Nope, just the flour because sometimes it gets burnt. I've done that before, but it burned on the bottom.
okay.
So I don't want to do that.
Well, the bottom's closer to the heating element, right? So
Yeah.
you're not going to broil it, but you still want it to brown on top. So use your oil, but
Yeah.
don't burn it on the bottom. Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, by having all those holes, you have moisture escape too.
That's
Yeah.
true, yeah.
So it's
So if
not
you
like
do
a
bake it-
calzone or something where you completely enclose it and you have to make sure there's no moisture.
Yeah, it can be tricky because you might get a very dry one if you strain out all your ingredients too much. So I leave a little bit of moisture. And I use ingredients that have, pretty decent moisture content. But I would never add a liquid on top of it. So I'm gonna put this in the oven. We'll check on our other one.
All right, Lulu, you're like a half hour from her. By the time you get over there, it'll be ready.
I'll get my mask.
Just like,
It's not even really close on the top. So I'm gonna actually put another 5 minutes on the timer.
but it looks
You
like
just-
all golden around the edges.
I was gonna
yeah.
say, could you put it under the broiler if you watched it carefully?
I never use the broiler because I always forget.
My
No, you gotta
broiler-
stand over it when you're using
have
the
to
They
sit
broiler.
there
even
and
said
watch it.
timers and like, the timer, you're
You
like,
gotta
put
watch
2
it the
minutes
whole
on the
time.
timer.
You cannot walk away. It's
That's
so
like-
long.
That's like trying to toast seeds of any kind. You gotta be with
Oh.
it all the time. If you walk away, they burn.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, when I cook, I stand over it all the time anyway. I never go away and
So on
This
your farm,
morning-
what is the crop you guys probably grew the most of last year, or the most unique one?
I grow a lot of medicinal herbs, and my favorite one to grow the past few years has been hibiscus roselle. It's in the Malvaceae family, which is also the okra family. So it gets as tall as an okra, and it actually has leaves that are shaped like an okra. It's in the hibiscus, the hibiscus and okra plants look a lot alike. But this is called hibiscus roselle, and it gets these red calyxes, which are the pre-emergent buds. And they're delicious in tea. They turn a tea bright red. So you harvest the calyxes and then you dry them and you can make tea out of that. And it actually lowers blood pressure. It's a medicinal plant that has so many great properties. It's kind of tastes like natural Kool-Aid when you sweeten it a little bit and it turns it bright red. So it's great.
Okay, that wasn't an endorsement. Tastes
it
like
sounds like
Kool-Aid.
it sounds like rose hips in a way.
Yeah. I'll show you a jar that I grew.
My favorite herb to grow is probably sage because my best friend's name is Sage.
Aw.
Cute.
Just like, well, I wonder if sage would probably taste good in that too, huh?
Oh,
You'd have to be
Ooh.
careful to not put too much though.
Could you imagine a butternut squash or a pumpkin one with sage? Here's the hibiscus roselle.
Wow.
Calyxes.
I'm actually like, it's so colorful, I'm smelling it through the camera. Just like,
It has a very wonderful smell.
it's just like, what, have you ever made one of these braided breads that you ultimately didn't like the taste? Like you put stuff together and it was a mix that just didn't come out right.
Not the flavors, but I have baked it too long and it was just too hard to even chew. So that's that's another indication not to use the broiler for me personally. But
Only put inside stuff you like.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I
Fred,
like
I
a lot
have
of stuff that are really strong flavors, and if you put, you know, multiple strong flavors together, it can be weird. I mean,
I could imagine a like a pear one with arugula and blue cheese and toasted walnuts. That would be really yummy.
Yeah, that sounds
With
good.
a
I actually
balsamic drizzle.
had a pizza like that, but it had goat cheese on it.
Ooh, actually goat cheese would be much better. I love goat cheese.
But
That's
that's
one
like,
thing that I actually put in this typically, and I forgot to mention it. Oops.
just
I
like,
love goat cheese too.
She loves goat cheese
My
also.
favorite is
Me
her.
too.
so I mean, you could put nuts in it, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
basically anything that's pre-cooked or you could eat raw. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yep.
think
I
so.
mean,
Okay,
and
what
stuff.
was that other thing that she was going to tell us about? CSA or
Oh.
something?
Yes,
What is that?
CSA is called Community Supported Agriculture. And what that is, it's like getting a magazine subscription, but it's getting a subscription to a farm. So each week you would go and pick up vegetables. We have 2 drop-off locations, one in St. Louis and one in Alton. And each week they just get a box of veggies, whatever's in season, and they sign an agreement ahead of time that they'll be okay with anything we grow that's in season. And we ask people's favorite vegetables, but for the most part, it's whatever's in season. And so they'll get
Wow.
carrots, beets, turnips, radishes, greens, flowers, herbs. We just do strictly what we grow. We thought about partnering with meat and eggs. We have backyard chickens, but not enough to provide everybody with eggs. There's just so many certifications with livestock and chickens. Eventually I want to have a lot of bees, and so eventually I hope to do honey in there. But I've offered like tea blends and spice blends that I make. If there's a week when after a drought or something of that nature, I'll add a tea blend, a homegrown tea blend or a homegrown spice blend. And sometimes even like the last week we'll give them artwork that we did. So it's ours is a little different. This year we're sourcing.
Actually grew up with bees. My father had like 2 hives in the backyard, which was different since we're city people. But I remember spinning it and taking out the frames and the whole bit. That was the best. Honey, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm gonna
If
check
I
on this
wanted-
real quick.
If I wanted to put Parmesan on top of my bread, would you recommend doing it from the start or like sprinkle some on at the end?
This is actually, we put Parmesan on ours and it didn't burn.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
browning. So.
I'm gonna do that on the second one.
Yeah, she did it on, she put a little Parmesan on the second one, Emily.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do
Yep.
it so I don't
And
forget.
so, now I
They put
noticed
Parmesan on both of them.
the majority
can
of the
somebody-
cheeses you mentioned first were the ones that were what I would call a less fatty cheese
Yeah.
or more dry cheese. I mean, probably you could put the fattier cheeses, but it would might get too much oil and get it soggy.
The goat cheese tends to not. I haven't had that happen with the goat cheese. It makes it actually really delicious and creamy inside, but it's never made the dough soggy. But other cheeses might. Like brie would certainly change the consistency of the inside.
Maybe mozzarella.
Yeah.
Mozzarella works pretty
For the
good.
time, I put it in the oven different times. I really don't have a set time for this. So it's been 15 minutes and I just added on another 5 minutes. So we'll see about 20, but you really do need to check it regularly just to make sure it doesn't burn, because you just never know what the puff pastry or the dough, what's going to happen with it. So just check it every 5 minutes, I would say.
Is the goal just to get it to golden brown?
Yeah, you want it to be, you don't want it to be doughy on the inside. You want it to be golden brown and slightly hard. For the puff pastry, excuse me, honey, I don't want to.
Sorry.
For the puff pastry, if it, you want it to start separating with those nice layers, kind of like a croissant. So
Right.
once you start to see those layers emerge, and you could even, stick a knife in it to make sure it's not doughy in the center on the underneath, or flip it up like this with a spatula to make sure it's not burning on the bottom. Just do a quick test. This is only lightly golden brown on the bottom. One tip that I would say is never arrange it on a cutting board. I've done that before. And then when you go to move it to a sheet pan, it falls apart. That's a common mistake that I made when I first started doing this. So I've always now made them directly on a sheet pan.
And then it fits on the pan too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like now if you put when you put like multiple ones in the oven, it slows down the cooking process too.
Well, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I should have made a sweet and a savory one. Oh, well.
If you were to wrap like one of these, like a hot one, if I say I wanted to make a small one, if I wrapped it in foil while it was still warm, would that make it soggy, or would it yeah, okay.
Yeah, I have tried that to take one to my mom before.
Uh-huh.
She just put it in the oven for about 10 minutes on 400 and it crisped right up though. So you
Okay.
can do that. It will sog on you. Is that
Okay.
but
So
once it's cooled down, you can wrap it, but you wouldn't want to.
But then it
I
wouldn't
mean,
be
that's like
warm.
with any bread, you don't, or like when I do my cakes, I never put the foil on it until it's cooled down because it just turns soggy.
Yeah.
A way to get around that is this won't trap the moisture in, whereas plastic wrap or foil even will. So I use these terry towels for just about everything. Even like I'm trying to wean myself off of Ziplocs. I only buy some once or twice a year, but I'd rather just wrap everything in a terry towel. So I would put the cooled down braided bread here and then lightly wrap it in a towel. And you make sure it's a towel that you don't mind getting, stained.
Mm-hmm.
So I just keep a stockpile of these.
Cool.
Yeah. Have you ever I've seen it before where people made small ones and then again froze them and then took them out and popped them in the oven for 10 minutes to thaw them and crisp them. But
Great idea.
I tend to you saw how it's really quick to make, so in the time it takes to thaw it out, you could make a fresh one.
Yeah.
But
I have a question for Iris. Is there a favorite combination that you have for this braided bread?
I like the mushrooms and the marinara together.
But I don't think they can hear you.
I like the mushrooms and the marinara.
What kind of cheeses?
Parmesan and Asiago.
Nice.
do you like a sweet one? I think I would like apples and like toasted pecans.
Honestly, to me, I like this, the savory one more.
Yeah.
I like the one that has all the vegetables. I like the one that has all the vegetables.
Yeah, she loves vegetables. I don't think there's a vegetable you don't like, is there?
Radishes.
Radishes.
And turnips.
Who really likes radishes?
I know.
I love radishes.
I like
them on a salad.
I really like the radish sprouts. Like I buy them from the market regularly.
They're
But
good. You just wouldn't want to eat them to them like an apple,
Right.
They're good thin or pickled.
I like turnips.
Oh, turnips. We love to make roasted turnips and then put a honey butter glaze with rosemary.
I don't.
So good.
Hey, okay, I'm moving up there. Y'all
just
convinced me.
like,
Except for the snow, the cold, I don't know now.
just like-
I think today I actually had to put a windbreaker on. It was just a little bit cool, but that's the most we get down here.
Where are you?
Texas,
Oh, that's right. Texas. Wow.
almost to Corpus, so I'm pretty close to the ocean, which is cool. No pun intended. Yeah.
It's like, Now, do you ever eat it with anything, or just like you're eating a pizza?
So we were gonna serve it tonight with a salad, and I told Iris we could make some meatballs to go with it. Maybe have spaghetti, just to go with the Italian Mediterranean theme.
Well, that's kind of like having a salad right there. It's
Yeah.
just inside the bread.
That's true.
So that would be great with a pizza, with a spaghetti dinner, with your spaghetti noodles, your meatballs, and your enclosed salad. So, that's kind of cool.
All right,
Yeah.
Fred, and now you have to pick the wine to go with it.
Ooh.
Just like
Kendall Jackson Private Reserve Chardonnay.
Wow.
I just got 6 bottles delivered today.
I've got my Cabernet here. in my
Okay, where does
teacup.
Fred live? I got to go visit, be a couch surfer with Fred for a while.
Seal Beach, California.
Yeah, I'll be there. Nah, that's funny. I don't actually drink.
Fred, you live in Seal Beach, California?
I do. Yeah,
Wow, that's beautiful out there.
it is. Very nice.
Is,
I'm a
is,
Nate.
is
Go
that
ahead.
close to Catalina Island?
Yeah, just 27 miles across the sea, as they
Wow.
say.
That's amazing.
Yeah, my
Right.
neighbors have a big, I belong to the local yacht club. My neighbors have a big boat big power boat, and they go over there for the weekends quite often.
Wow,
to
that's
Catalina Island.
beautiful life. Beautiful life.
Especially with COVID, it's nice. They're just on their boat. And, they can do whatever they want on the boat, and they're not exposed to people, and they're hanging out and having a good time.
now
I
I've
miss
seen you,
traveling.
Crystal, do edible flowers on salads.
And cakes.
Just a little challenge. Like if you would like make this really fancy and set it out as a display, what kind of edible flower would you put on top of it?
Ooh, nasturtiums. Those grow really well in any region. Folks in Texas, California, nasturtium flowers are really easy to grow. The leaves are edible. The flowers are edible. They're spicy. They kind of taste like pepper a little bit, but they're beautiful. They come in all different colors: reds, orange, yellow, white,
Purple.
purple.
And make a nice presentation at the end on top of the,
Yeah,
your-
or serve it with some microgreens. Some.
What do we say?
Okay, thank you. 2 minutes. With the edible flowers, I do have something fancy I can show you that I made for a farm dinner. Give me 1 sec.
Just like, well, Iris, you're in charge now, as usual.
how are they doing in the oven, Iris?
How are they doing in the oven, Iris?
Oh,
Don't open it. You guys keep opening it. That's why it's not done. You
Thank
guys keep opening it, opening it. All the hot air's going out.
there we go.
Yeah, but when
We
you
have to
open
make
it, and smoke comes out, then it's a problem.
Here, what do you do? Real quick.
What is it for?
To show.
Turn the light on and look
Cut it.
through the door.
Is that an herbed butter?
Okay, I'm gonna do a slice here. Go ahead and do 2 slices. So this is a compound butter. Has anybody ever made a compound butter?
No.
Part of it.
A compound butter is where you soften butter, and I actually made this butter from scratch using local cream. It's heavy cream. I basically just blended it with salt and a food processor until it turned to butter. So really simple making butter. I had no idea how easy it was to make butter. I took heavy cream, let it sit out overnight, and then I put salt in it, and it creamed up on its own, and then I froze it. But before I did that, with a compound butter, you just bring it to room temperature, and then you add herbs or flowers. I added these edible flowers, and look at those.
So pretty.
Nice colors. Look at that. Beautiful. Wow.
Gorgeous.
Like little veins through it.
Yeah,
That is cool.
and they look like little patterns. You could find little people
Yeah.
hidden in them.
Yeah,
So
that's
pretty.
cool.
But the nasturtium flower, I took the petals off of marigolds, nasturtiums, and pansies. One by one, I took the petals off. It took hours because I made 7 huge logs of it. And then I just placed it all in a plastic wrap and rolled it up, and that's how it hardened. I froze it. And then when you go to cut it open, you can wow people with it. It's a real fun one to do.
That's really cool.
I went and tell Laura I got some ghee the other day, or after we had our conversation about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is
Oh,
how I would
look.
like it. Because
Yeah.
anymore, I think it will burn.
Nice.
Nice and golden, yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah, Fred, I like ghee because, what do you call it? It's like, well, I try to not eat too much fat because I'm fat. And so with ghee, you can put a small amount and it seems like a lot as a flavor.
It also
And
has
then
a
also you can
higher
not,
smoke point.
and then you can, what do you call it? Leave it on the counter because it's not going to go bad. And
Doesn't
so
need
I grew up without
refrigeration.
refrigeration. So
Yeah. But it's got a higher smoke point too. So if you're using higher heat,
oh, I don't
the
use
ghee
it
is
for
good.
frying. I just use it as, I honestly use it as a flavor is what I use it for. If I'm going to add, you know, an oil to something as a flavor or, you know, to pop, give it a little pop, I like putting ghee in it.
You could probably make a compound ghee and do it where you, is it solidified at room temperature?
Yeah.
Then you could just soften it a
Yeah,
little
it
bit,
does.
add your herbs, and then freeze it, and it'll be like a nice addition if you want to add some herbs, your flower petals.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
what temperature ghee solidifies. I know coconut oil is 78 degrees,
Wow.
you know, so yeah, I mean, here was used to coconut oil being like a solid, and then I was working down in the Caribbean and it was all a
It's
liquid.
a liquid,
I never saw it
yeah.
as solid.
Yeah.
Because it never got cool. So
Yeah.
A
I
nice
wonder-
compound butter
so-
that I made is with honey. Just mixing honey and butter is so yummy together.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I love that. On fresh biscuits. Oh goodness, that sounds delicious.
So growing up, I didn't have refrigeration, and so Dad tended to work seasonally. So he would. I knew it would be a good winter when he'd come home with a bucket of honey. He'd always get a bucket of honey, but then a bucket of a nut butter. And I remember the winter that it was almond butter winter. And so he'd come home with a big bag of flour, a 5-gallon thing of oil, a bucket of honey, and a bucket of nut butter. And so Mom would make a lot of fresh bread and we'd eat that. And then we didn't have refrigeration, so we'd use ghee, or you just drizzle oil on it with some garlic powder, you know. But yeah, fresh bread.
Yum.
But
So good.
yeah. Now I'm gluten sensitive, so I can't eat. I get to cook for other people. So
I'll have to figure out a gluten-free bread recipe and send it your way. I'm
well,
sure you already have.
I don't care about bread as much as pasta. I
Okay.
I like pasta. So in our buy nothing group, a lady just got one of the, like, you know, I've got one of these mixers, right? She had a mixer, so she got the attachment for her pasta machine for the mixer, and she put on the buy nothing one, the hand one. So I was really excited to see your cooking class a couple days ago where you guys were making the pasta.
Yeah.
I
that's
literally just like 2 days ago got this pasta machine.
That's
And
great.
it was just
Or
like,
let me in. I'm in the waiting room on my phone.
what?
I'm in the waiting room on my phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just got this made in Italy pasta machine, and the recipe book is in 7 languages.
Wow, that's amazing.
But
That's
so yeah,
cool.
I'm gonna try to figure out how to make some gluten-free pastas. So, and I have a bunch of different flours. I bought probably 10 different gluten-free flours in preparation. I've been the last couple of months trying to bake different things. So I've got like mung bean and potato and rice and lentil, and yeah.
I wonder if you could just make noodles with tapioca starch and water. I just got a big bag of tapioca starch. Wonder if you can make those. I don't know. I think that's what you make boba, like the boba tea out of.
Yeah.
But I've never worked with it as a flour. I just add it to things to thicken it.
That's what I do with it too.
Yeah. So.
All right.
All right.
Got my
I
first
think
one out.
unless you want to like cut one open and tease us.
Oh yeah. Sure.
I think we wrapped it up. If anybody has some final questions before I turn the recording off.
Did you guys see mine? Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah.
Can you turn it off of the spotlight so we can see hers?
I'm on my phone with the video.
All right, let's see here.
Other Emily.
Spotlight Emily's shot. She's got her phone shot there.
There we go.
Ooh,
Beautiful.
He made that in a
Nice.
toaster oven, so there's no
I made
excuse.
it in a toaster oven.
Cool.
That's
Just
amazing.
like-
I love it.
Good job.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Nice.
Wow.
And now I've got my second one to go in.
And you said in Bogota it's really high, so it's harder to grow stuff. I mean, not grow.
No,
Cooks differently with high
it cooks
altitude.
differently, and I've never baked. I've never baked at a high altitude before. Like this is the first experience for me, and I do a lot of baking back home. So
Okay, I think we need a taste tester. Anybody want to volunteer?
Lulu's closest.
Yeah, be right there.
What is from Melinda? Hi, Melinda. I think I saw that she left. I'm sorry we didn't say hi earlier. Melinda is gone.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
All right. Any final questions? And I'll before I turn the recording off. Anything critical? Somehow Amy got spotlighted there. Sorry, Amy. Iris, you have anything you want to tell everybody?
Is it good?
I haven't tried it.
Just like
I've tasted.
wonderful.
It's
Well, the
a little
cats
hot.
managed to stay out of the kitchen. Just
Yeah,
like
the cats must be sleeping.
just like all right.
Thank you, everyone.
There's rubber gum.
Thank you.
And
Good
Yeah.
night.
what do you call it? I will try to share your whenever you guys do the cooking classes to
Oh, thank you.
the Leave It to Chef Facebook page, but otherwise it's always a little spotlight because most of the ones you guys do are like really short. It's like really quick and fast.
I think they're really long. They're 7 minutes, and that feels like it's too long.
just like, well, you guys just did an hour, so.
When
Yeah.
do you normally have those cooking classes? Like, are they during the day or
No,
an
we just,
evening or?
Just
I just post videos on my Facebook, and it's at Crystal Stevens, Crystal Stevens with a V.
V as in Victor?
Yes.
thank you very much, everybody. And let me turn off the recording here.
And to make
I
sure
turned